Pardon?
So if you didn't drink coffee, what did you drink?
I'll drink soda, but so good morning to everybody who's joining us online. We're having a discussion on coffee and the need for it. We are having some issues with this that's on a lock screen, so we are going to paint a picture with words a little bit, and we'll jump into the class. And so some folks might be sitting closer to me, which is great. But we're going to be talking about Genesis, and I made the joke a couple weeks ago, last year I guess, that some folks will be, well, that's Phil Collins, and others will say it's Peter Gabriel, and we'll just go back to the beginning of everything. But what we're going to do with this class is we're going to jump into, we're going to start every class off with what we're reading from the Heidelberg Catechism. And that's going to be for every Sunday school class we have for this year. So as a church, we are, so I can see Rob, as a church, we are going through the Heidelberg Catechism over the next, now 51 weeks. Because it was divided up into 52 Lord's Days. Some Lord's Days have 2 questions, some have 3. This week we have 3. And so we're just going to talk about what those things mean to make sure that we are as an astute as a Swiss confirmation student from the 18th century. Does that sound fair? So
It sounds overwhelming.
it might be. We'll see.
Yes, that's the better word.
Yeah, the issue is that I can't even, it's locked on this screen. So it's locked on, so it's sharing my home screen. Even when I turn it off and turn it back on, it's somehow locked. I think I have to power down the whole system, which would power down my whole system. So, so we will start with the 2 questions we had last week. The first one's longer, but the first, that one, you've heard it, because we do it about once every 2 months, every 3 months. Heidelberg Catechism, Lord's Day 1, question 1, what is your only comfort in life and in death? Does anybody remember the response? At least it's a long one, but it starts off that I am not my own. That I am not my own, but I belong body and soul in life and in death to my faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. So I mentioned this last week. You can have affirmations, you can have confessions. This one is beautiful because it says, what's your only comfort? And here's the thing, that God never says, I'm going to give you perfect understanding. Because we all have questions. That's what we talked about last week. What was the title of the sermon last week? I know it was 7 days ago. It was the first question. So the first question is, why are we here? And the next question is, what's next? Here it is saying, God says, I'll never give you perfect understanding, but I will give you perfect comfort and perfect peace. So our only comfort is we are not our own, but we belong to our faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. So it goes on further from that. And then the question number 2 is, what must you know to live and die in the joy of this comfort? And the 3 things. First, how great my sin and misery are. Second, how I am set free from all my sins and misery. Third, how I am to thank God for such deliverance. So it's all divided, the whole catechism is divided up into 3 sections. The first section is it's misery. second section is freedom, and third section is Thanksgiving. So that's the good news. You know, we talk about with Meatloaf, right? To the singer, not the well-loved dinner. What was his greatest hit? His greatest song, his greatest thing
Depends on
from Bat Out of Hell. What was his biggest chart topping? What? Paradise of the Dashboard Light. I can't really work that.
I know.
Although,
I'm curious.
although next week we are talking about Adam and Eve, so maybe we can go there. We could also talk about that, I guess, with the eschaton, the end of time, the Galusia time. I'm praying for the end of time to hurry up and arrive.
Yeah. There you go.
But it was actually 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Oh, yeah.
That was probably the one that charted up the highest before I'd Do Anything for Love, but won't be bad. But so the 2 to 3 aren't bad because there's freedom, there's Thanksgiving, but where do we start? Misery. So that's this week. It's a little bit shorter. I'm going to read these to you. They're in the bulletin. Heidelberg Catechism, Lord's Day 2. How do you come to know your miseries? The question number 3. And the answer is, the law of God tells me. So the law convicts us. The law says you can't do it on your own. Next question. What does the law require of us? What does God's law require of us? The answer, Christ teaches us this in summary in Matthew 22:37 through 40. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. We good so far? Now here's where it gets a little hard. Question number 5. Can you live up to all this perfectly? Answer, no. I have a natural tendency to hate God and my neighbor.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
That's a hard one.
It's going to get worse.
Oh, ouch.
Yes, I'm sorry. And the reason I bring this up is we are in a world that oftentimes, let me turn the video on so Jack can see us. Hopefully she can. We are in a world where back when there used to be many bookstores, now there's a handful, but there are whole sections on what it's called, self-help. And there's some value to trying to be the best version of yourself you can be. But at the core of Reformed theology is total depravity. It means that, and we know this intrinsically, we know that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We know in our own lives that we have things that some of us, everybody has a junk drawer. I don't care how clean your house is. Well, so here, well, exactly. But so some have a junk drawer. When we used to have people, my parents would have people over. They're like, please, because we had a Brady Bunch house, right? It was half ranch and the other half was split level, and so please close the door to the basements. Because we don't want to see other people see how we really live and what we really have. Right now, I open and close our garage door with the speed of a pit crew and an open wheel or NASCAR race because it is not fit for the outside world to see. So it could be a junk drawer. It could be a garage, it could be a basement, but we know in our own lives we have stuff we do not want other people to see. And so this is at the heart of saying, can you love God this way? can you love your neighbor this way? And the answer is no, we cannot on our own. So this is the beginning of misery. My father and I, and you all know how dear my dad was and is to me, we had a fundamental disagreement on the nature of man, the nature of humans. Dad comes from much more of the it's not Armenian, it's Armenian school, and this is out of the Methodist tradition, out of the holiness tradition, out of some Pentecostal as well, that says that there are things you can do to become more holy and to get closer almost to God. That's why we get the word Methodist, because this was a group out of England, John and Charles Wesley, others, that it was part of the Anglican Church, and it was not originally its own denomination. It was a part of the church which said there was a method, certain amount of Bible study, certain amount of prayer, certain amount of gatherings that gets you more holy. When I was introduced to Reformed theology in seminary, I was like, it's the opposite. That yes, we are very much capable of doing good things, and we should. However, history, the idea that beginning of the 20th century into the 19th century, the overarching theme was on the power of humanity. That on our own, we are enlightened, we are reasonable, we are interconnected, and so we can make sure that there's no more war. And this is a major component of modernism. And what happened in 1914? We had the most needless war likely in human history. That was all tied to, it was the catalyst for it was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo. But everybody had their own alliances. And if somebody attacked, then somebody else had to defend, and then at that point, just brutal. And so I'm going to stick to my thing. Then compared with my conversation that I had with my dad, that no, we are prone to we don't want to admit this to ourselves, but we are prone to hate God in the sense that we want to be gods of our own lives. We'll talk about that probably next week. The original sin in the Garden of Eden was pride. Because what did the serpent said? If you eat this, you will be like God. And then also about our distrust of our neighbor and how that looks. So that's our affirmation today, and I'm sorry. And it's not going to be good for a while. It's going to be hard because we got to go through misery first before you get to deliverance. Yeah, Bill.
So, just out of curiosity, your father was taking the position of the Methodist. Is that true? Is that
much more so? Yeah, much more that humans are that it's much more, because we'll hear about this today in just a minute. God creates humans in the image of God, and then it repeats itself. It says, "And in the image of God, the Lord created them." So Dad took much more of that balance, because there's always a balance. There's a balance between free will and God's providence. Presbyterians, it's God's providence has more weight. Other places they'll talk about God's providence, but it's like, but if you don't respond by saying yes, you're going to hell. So that is a distinctive thing, and our thing is in that balance. We said if God says yes, that yes is eternal. What is your no in the midst? What is your puny no in the midst of God's yes? So these balances, the balance between the goodness of humans and the evil of humans. There's actually a wonderful it's a fantastic show. It's called Community. I don't know if any of you all ever watched Community. Joel McHale. It was on about 10, 15 years ago. They have a brilliant, it's about a community college and these people who can never get out of it. And the whole thing is they're having a debate on that man is intrinsically good or man is intrinsically bad. And this whole thing plays out. Maybe I'll send you the clip. But it's that debate. And so this is kind of, the Heidelberg Catechism goes towards misery. So it's a little bit like it's a little bit like listening to George Jones, you know, for those of you who listen to 1960s and 70s country, you know, pain, misery, oh my kind of thing. So as we go to Genesis, let's talk about what it is and what it's not. Genesis, some of you, and I'll add you all to our list, but there's a really great thing on YouTube called the Bible Project, and it gives an overview of all the books of the Bible, and I think in about as fair a way for the people who are on these different kind of balances. And the one on Genesis, I sent everybody the link for the first one. Did folks get a chance to watch it?
Yeah.
So hopefully it's helpful how it's kind of divided up. So Genesis, broadly speaking, it is part of the first 5 books of the Bible. Now this has many different names. One of them is the Torah, Torah. One of them is, they call them the books of Moses, because they claim that Moses authored them. It's a little bit goofy because Moses dies halfway through. But another one that we know there are 5 is because when the Greeks, originally written in Hebrew, but when it was translated into Greek, it got a new name for the Greeks. You know what that was called? The Pentateuch. This pentagram, Pentateuch, just means 5 books. And Genesis was basically it is the origin story of the people of Israel. But it is also, itself is divided up into different sections. In the beginning, literally in the beginning, is the creation story, but really specifically, it is the creation stories. I didn't learn that until I went to seminary, which is crazy. And yet I knew there were 2 creation stories because I had grown up hearing 2 creation stories. There is the macro creation story, which is what we'll hear in Genesis 1:1 through 2:4. And then we have what would be the focused in micro creation story, which is the story of Adam and Eve. So, the question I have, has it always been clear as day to everybody but me that there were 2 creation stories? Or did you somehow in your head kind of meld them together?
Yes.
Or have you thought about it all? And this is kind of again, it's hidden in plain sight. That's right here. What do we normally think about when we think about Genesis? Or what have you thought about it? Has it ever changed, like, opinions on the book of Genesis?
Just the 7 days.
So 7 days. It's a good start.
I look at it as like the building blocks of everything else that we learn. So it's the start of, literally in the beginning, and then you move on to the story and the explanation and the lineage and all of that. So it's literally the base story of the house.
Yep, it's the foundation. And it is very much so in a lot of different ways.
I think popularly, people think of Genesis as the fall of man.
Yeah, so it's the fall of man, the fall of humanity, 100%. It's and even talking about these stories, the creation stories, talking about the disagreements my dad and I had, reading the same thing. You know, we can disagree and not be disagreeable, but we very much disagreed on it. Although I think Dad started to see more my way. At least that's what I tell myself.
Because of your persuasive powers,
Oh, it must have been. Must have been. Let me get to where we're at. So we're gonna look at chapter 1, and you can follow along on your phones, or again, if you have the Bible with you. And you're also invited just to listen to it. They always told us it's in seminary, and I've said this to you before, the Bible original was written to be heard. And so we're going to go through the 6 days of creation and the Sabbath.
But the stories themselves were heard before they were written.
That's exactly right.
So what you have is the literary distillation of much more than what is represented by the Hebrew scripture.
Yeah. So your point's a good one, that coming from an oral tradition first, and
In a lot of different cultures.
in a lot of different cultures, because we're going to hear about a flood. And I remember the first time I learned that there were other people in the Near East who had their own flood stories. And I was like, does that negate this one? Does it reinforce it? How do you look at it? The other side about this, and we won't get into this today, we might get into it in the future, but there are the academic understanding of a lot of the Pentateuch, but it's called JEPD. So if you want to write that down, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But it's the idea that different parts of the scripture, largely we believe, were compiled ultimately during the reign of King David, but that it was written and also edited by different people. So people get then, well, if that happened, then how can we know it's true? You know, and so this is people get really worked up about that, but we can certainly wrestle with that at a future time. So Genesis 1:1. Now, if you are in the King James Version, you're probably going to hear it in the beginning. My version says, when God began to create the heavens and the earth was complete chaos, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. So we could do a whole series of classes on the first, 4, 5 verses right here.
And what's your version?
I thought it was the NRSV, but now I'm looking at it, I don't know that it is. Yeah, I think I got the anglicized version here. So does the NRSV start in the beginning?
Mhm.
Okay, well,
And the NIV is too.
okay.
So I'm using the Robert Alter translation from the Hebrew,
Mhm.
and it begins when God began to create heaven and earth.
So I wonder if I got the altar version.
Well, it was very influential in a lot of the ways that the Bible was, changed after the 1960s.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does verse 2 say? Some says it was
And the earth was a formless void,
A
and darkness covered the face of the deep.
So, I'm curious if this is the same as yours, John. The earth was complete chaos.
Yeah, it's not, but it says, and the earth was welter and waste, and darkness over the deep, and God's breath hovering over the waters. And then in his notes, it says the Hebrew tohu wabahu occurs only here and in 2 later biblical texts that are all clearly alluding to this one. The second word of the pair looks like a nonce term, or nonsense term, coined to rhyme with the first and reinforce it. In effect, I've tried to approximate it in English by alliteration. Tohu by itself means emptiness or futility, and in some cases in some context is associated with the trackless vacancy of the desert. So it's, and again, you know, if you know his work, with, especially the Psalms, trying to capture the Hebrew language, sort of the games of alliteration.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the words that we translate literally were just simply used because they sounded good as read.
So Hebrew, there are cake people in the world and there are pie people in the world. You might like both, but you generally prefer one or the other. There are Greek people in the world for the language, and there are people who like Hebrew. Very much cake and pie. And friends, Greek is pie. If you are mathematically inclined, if you like language to make sense and to be consistent, Greek is a treat. Winston Churchill said, you know, that you might, like, basically you need, obviously you learn, you know, English, you need to learn Latin, you have to understand French, but you learn Greek as a treat. And because it's the, however a word in Greek ends determines if it is the subject, the noun, the verb, the adjective. It's really, it's a joy. Hebrew stinks. Hebrew is cake. It's empty calories.
No offense, John.
No, but John brings it up because it is poetic. It is a language that is based off cold and flu season, because a lot of kind of things. But it's because in order for the poetry to work, the rules, if there are rules, are adjusted for the language. And so as they work with alliteration, the most famous alliteration, the most famous way they do this in Genesis, we're going to hear next week, is the name Adam literally comes from the word Adama, which means dirt. So it's a play on words. Adam, because I drew him out of the dust, out of the dirt. Right here, we get alliteration in the original Hebrew. It's talking about, though, across the board, it is a formless void. It is a trackless desert. It is complete chaos. And darkness covers the face of the deep. These are people who knew, I remember, do you ever look at old maps from like Columbus's day or before that, and they have like sea monsters, and they have all these scare, but well, that was the whole thing, because the to go on the water was to go into chaos, because it was not terra firma. It was not like there were storms, there were creatures, there's all these kind of things. And so when it's saying the earth was complete chaos and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters, or the breath of God, or the Spirit of God, because the Greek word for spirit is pneuma. The Hebrew word for spirit is ruach. And again, does that not sound like you know? Excuse me, as I'm cutting off my cold. And so you have here God the Father already mentioned, and then you also have what is hovering over the face of the deep? The Spirit.
And that the way he describes that is that the word he uses is hovering, but it's ruah, which God's breath, wind, spirit, is elsewhere in the Bible described along with that of an eagle fluttering over its young in its nest. So there's a whole new image of the thing that has been created and the thing that is the creator in relationship.
And all those things. Jackie, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm using a new Bible that I got, which is NLT, and it has a filament that I can have study things on my phone, and it has kind of an interesting side note on the deep waters, Hebrew Tiham. Some scholars say this alludes to the Mesopotamian goddess Tiamat, representing chaos, but Genesis views Tiham as an inhospitable chaos, not as a deity or goddess that God engaged in cosmic battle. The Spirit of God, Ruha, God directly superintended the creation process. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Idea that it's kind of a play on other religions also.
Oh, what? No, 100%. Thank you. So this, we're going to see that theme throughout Genesis, because it is saying this is how those guys do it, this is how we do it, and this is how we understand it. And the whole idea is out of chaos. What does God do? God creates order. And then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. Again, there's light day, darkness night, and that was the first day, evening, morning, first day. You'll notice here, it repeats almost as if it is liturgy. And there was evening, and then there was morning, the first day, the second day. You're going to see something else here as well. It says, "And God said, let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. Anything in your translations that you're noticing that's different on the second day?
Mine says,
It's the heavens.
mine says let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water.
Mm-hmm. So an expanse, a dome, different.
Vault.
What?
Vault,
Vault?
V-A-U-A-L-T.
A vault. Vault. Yeah, Jackie.
Mine says, in the ancient Near East, the cosmos was understood as a three-tier system, with rain originating from the outermost tier. See Genesis 7, 11 through 12, and study note there.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it just,
Yeah.
again, I see it as referring back to other beliefs.
Sure. And the other part of this thing we haven't said yet, and because we've got about maybe 10 more minutes, 12 more minutes, and I, as in a race here in a bit, try to get through this week of creation, this is also poetry. You know, this is not designed to be a historical account in the same ways or a scientific explanation for things. It is beautiful. We affirm that God did this, and this is the best way that we can describe it, or that people can describe it. Our words are always going to fail. Our finite words can never fully describe the infinite. It is pride and hubris to suggest we can. This falls into the mystery of God, that we believe God created, and this is how we understand to describe it. But part of this is we're using the language, they're using the language of what is around them and the understandings of what is around them. The Bible, you can see actually on a thing like heaven, the question of the afterlife, the Bible adjusts as it goes forward to what the understanding is. It's very different in the first half of the New Testament, or the Old Testament, until we get to the second half of the Old Testament, until we get to the New Testament, the understanding of Jesus. So, again, we have plenty of time to discuss this. And God said, let the waters out of the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was good. Really quick, what is God's, that's also a response too. God says it's good with each of these things. and God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called the seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with a seed in it. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing the fruit with a seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. The author was very much wanted to have us hear the word seed. Because what does seed mean? Regeneration. It's creation and it's recreation. Right here. That this is a sustainable community that God is building with this earth. So we got the sky. We got then we go, let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be signs. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let there be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. How can you not be moved by this? It's beautiful. It's again, it's talking about, okay, how do we understand the sun? How do we understand the moon? How do we understand the stars? We don't fully understand them, but we know that God set everything in order. Again, there was chaos. There was all this stuff. The form was void, and God is creating order. And God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above earth across the dome of the sky. So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. We got fish, we got birds. All right? Sea creatures. All right, this is a long one. It would show up here. Then God said, now this is tricky. We'll talk about some of this more next week. Then God said, let us make humans in what? Our image. According to our likeness. And let's stop there, because we have to. Now, if we hear our image, we have the biggest thing about Judaism, the Abrahamic faiths, but the foundation of the Abrahamic faiths of Christianity and Islam is Judaism. And but the core thing about that is what? Monotheism. That they believe in one God. The Lord our God is one. So as Christians, we hear our likeness, and we are going to say, speaking about they, them, it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. One God in three persons. So that's how we would read that. There are a few things that we'll read in Genesis that will potentially make us scratch our head. Any questions on that?
So, I mean, you skipped over the part about the living creatures on the earth,
Oh, did I skip that?
which,
No.
after the evening of the fifth day, and God said, let the earth
Oh, I
bring
did
forth
skip
living
that.
creatures of every kind.
Oh, you're right. I did. Wow.
Cattle and crawling.
What am I hiding?
Well, that to me, though, is always been the answer to who is God referring to in the plural here. Let us. He's referring to the creation, and making it in our image includes humans as animals and as divine. And then that all plays out into the whole idea of God wants somebody to be with,
Mhm.
and that's why we're, you know, loved, even if we're disappointed.
yes.
So anyway, it's just a personal thing.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know I skipped that slide, so thank you. So, if, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over the cattle and over all the wild animals of the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. Dominion is a word that if we had a little more time, we would wrestle with.
Yeah, he uses sway.
Sway. The question of that is, it is not for the abuse of the world. It is not, it is, we are given a charge, we are stewards of the gifts that God gives to us. One of my increasingly one of my favorite presidents is Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt he broke up trust, he came from privilege, but had tragedy in his life, all this stuff. But part of his thing was conservation. And really, so many of the things that we can enjoy right now was because he saw that this was not just for this generation. And if we did not take care of it, then it's gone forever. And so, so the question of dominion is about responsibility and sway. Yes, we are at the top of the food pyramid, but that requires stuff. So God created humans in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. 2 times. This is where my dad's and I, in the image of God, it's called the Imago Dei. It's mentioned twice that created in the image of God. Does that just mean that he did that to Presbyterians? Or to Christians? Or to Jews? No, it says in the image of God, he created them, created humans in his image. It is to say that all people are created in the image of God. I'm just not gonna be able to, maybe fit, I don't know. I gotta go. I gotta prep my sermon.
To me, that's a very important point, is that a Trinitarian God creates a dual human.
Mm-hmm.
So that we have in humanity,
Mm-hmm.
no difference between male and female from the very beginning.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, then the story later on, talks about how that was done and gives a sequence of events. But, the first thing we hear about humans is that
we're all created.
We're all created, and our understanding of the Word was there at the beginning.
Yep.
Means that it wasn't just a single, even though it's a monotheistic, it's not a single entity.
Good point. So I'm going to stop there at verse 27 because we'll pick up at 28 next week, and then go into the second creation story. I will mention this though. This is something to chew on. We'll come back with our first question next week. Is the question of the image of God.
Yeah.
So there is. How many of you ever watched St. Elsewhere?
Oh, I used to.
Back in the day, that was 40 years ago now. The last episode of St. Elsewhere blew my mind. And I was not old enough when it started to have watched it all the way through. Does anybody remember the last episode? It is right up there with the last episode of Newhart, where he wakes up next to Susan Plachette. And it was all a dream. Well, it ends with it's a boy with a snow globe of the St. Elsewhere Hospital or whatever. All the whole story was in his mind. But there's a part at the end where they go to heaven, where there's a scene in how Howie Mandel's character meets God, and God looks exactly like him. And so we're gonna wrestle with the question of what is the image of, what does it mean to be created in the image of God? Also what Voltaire said. Voltaire said that God created man in his own image and man returned the favor.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to that, but I gotta put a sermon up. So thank you all. I will also send everybody a YouTube video, and I need to watch it again. It's a claymation account of the second creation story, and it's based of Adam and Eve, and it's based off of Mark Twain. Has anybody ever watched this? Oh my gosh! Well, you're in for a treat if I can find it.
How are you sending us?
So
stuff?
I will send. I will add you
Email
all. I will add you all to
Okay.
the email.
Thank
So
you.
yes.
Do you
Uh,
have my email?
I have.
Do you my
Oh
email,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
I've got both of you.
That's
I'm glad you all. Glad you all are here. Bye, Jackie.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye, Jack.